Hi, I'm Chris Reedy and welcome to Ready and Willing Podcast. This is our next episode of what's become a really famous podcast. But I'm really privileged today to have another Chris, so it's a really good name. Chris to Chris here today is Chris Brookes, who's the chairman of Wigan Warriors, distinguished career in the NHS, and really privileged to have Chris here today. So hi, Chris, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to it, Chris. We'll have a really good chat.
Yeah. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, for people who don't know who Chris Brookes is, from your career and then into rugby?
Yeah, so you mentioned that I worked in the NHS for a long time, and it was a 40-year career in the NHS. And that's been wrapped into what I've done in rugby league as well, because skills I learned within the NHS I've used in rugby league over the years. And so I've got the privilege of being qualified in both dental surgery and also medicine. And so that's been something that's been really helpful in the years I've been working in rugby league. And those two specialties, they meant that my interest in the NHS was in emergency, because I could use both my skills in dental surgery and jaw and facial surgery and all the stuff I'd learned during medical training to work in emergency, which of course fits in very well in the 28 years or so I did working on the pitch side in rugby league.
So you people will have noticed Chris on the pitch side as the club doctor.
Yeah.
You'll have seen many things there. And lots of like scary things, I would have thought, when you see, because it's a brutal sport, rugby league, and it's a real contact sport. So some of the stuff that you've probably seen over the years, Chris.
Yeah. So having done it for so long, there have been times when the players have been badly hurt. I suppose I've always taken confidence from the fact that working in emergency, I had the skills and the knowledge. And that was an important thing, Chris, because it actually gave confidence to the staff that we were working with as well, and also to the players. Crikey, over the years, some things have happened. There's been occasions when players have suffered really bad breaks, and often these breaks is at a lower part of the leg, and so the ankle comes out of joint and matters of that nature. There's been times, there was a time back in the mid 2000s when I was working with Great Britain, when Paul Deacon suffered a very bad facial injury, and there's been some really nasty cuts and wounds along the way as well. And so, crikey, I suppose when I changed to become, first of all, the vice chairman and the chairman, those years really helped me, because I've never played the game at all, and I certainly never played the game professionally. Yet I think I was uniquely placed to understand what the players go through, their commitment, their dedication, how they put their bodies on the line, having had to look after them for so many years.
I think naturally a long career that you've had, and naturally in rugby, it's very time consuming. So yeah, your wife's been really supportive along that way. I've met your wife a number of times now, and she's a person I really gel with, to be quite honest. When I first met her, sat down with her and had a coffee with her, and since then I go and have conversations with her rather than you, Chris, actually. She's a really clever lady, but actually really grounded. And I think that's something about you, really. Some people ask me, Chris Brookes, what are you like? For all your career that you've had, and that's Professor Chris Brookes, if we're doing the title, and you built that up, you're still grounded, and you're the person on the ground who can speak to anybody at any level, and really does that well. So that's something, a real attribute that you've got.
Thank you, Chris. And I suppose, again, that stood me in good stead in emergency. None of us want our loved ones to have to be in that sort of environment. And actually, it's something that happens to every family.
Yeah.
And being able to speak to patients and their families, and also lead staff through what are often difficult times, difficult circumstances, that's something that stood me in good stead. Vanita, my wife, did something similar, not the same. She remained in dental surgery, and she set up a service for those who couldn't seek dental care elsewhere. So those with special dental needs, and she set up that service for the whole of Lancashire, based in Chorley. And of course, you might have noticed that she has a special affinity with the president of the Rugby Football League, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, of course, the Speaker of the House of Commons. And he really likes Venita because he knows that she set up that service in Chorley and based in Chorley. And it became famous throughout the whole of the country, and the Royal College of Surgeons and all of those things. So, that both of us, both Venita and I, we have that really commitment to public service, to commitment to others, and to try and get the best out of people as well. It's really important to us.
I suppose from rugby league fans who'll listen to this and that saying, know your connection and all the stuff that you do, the questions they would ask is, some people you've met who have been outstanding that you've met, who've made an impact on you throughout them years. So if you can throw a few names about, that'd be good.
Well, so I used a lot of the leadership things that I saw in rugby league. I used those within the NHS and within emergency and wider leadership bits, because I've had the privilege, Chris, of working with some really outstanding captains. So thinking about our wonderful club, oh crikey, the names just slip off the tongue. So Andrew Farrell, Sean O'Loughlin, Sam Tompkins. These are it's just extraordinary. And then of course not just Sean, but Thomas Luley, again a really famous name, but somebody who led the team so well. And then Liam Farrell, and I've known Liam, just looping back to the Farrell name, of course there's that connection, but I've known Liam ever since he made his breakthrough in Michael Maguire's team in 2010. And look, we were just reflecting before this season's grand final. He won 5 grand finals with Wigan. He came off the bench in 2010 for his debut. But, I'm just going to reflect just about one particular grand final about Liam Farrell, and then I'll say a bit about the leadership skills of the folk I've come across. So my favourite grand final, 2016. There's a few things about it, Chris. So that season, and you're wearing a Wigan Warriors badge top here. I think George and Roy, our long-standing kit men, would say to you that I'm not the best at wearing the right kit, and I've got in all sorts of trouble over the years around
Make
this.
a good politician.
Unintentionally, but wearing the wrong kit. Anyway, this year, 2016, the kit deal was with an Italian company, Aria, and there was a bit like the sort of floor here. There was a lime green kit, which Chris Radlinski gave me as a joke. That rain top as a joke. He said even you couldn't forget to put this on. Anyway, I said to George, the kit man, I said, George, get me the shorts, get me the socks. And I wore it to every single game. And Rads was thinking, I've given him this as a joke. And he just wore it to every game. So that season, it's probably not well known that Liam Farrell had suffered a career-threatening injury. And what had happened was, at the end of the previous season, 2015, he'd broken a rib. And as that rib healed, the bone surrounding the healing, incredibly, had got wrapped up into the nerves coming down his arm. And so every time he tried to tackle somebody, he felt excruciating pain, nerve pain, and his arm went dead. And it took a long time to work out what the heck was going on. However, we decided that he had to have an operation, and a really complex one involving blood vessels, involving removing the nerves from and around the bone that got wrapped in really complex. He had to go to intensive care after it, and all of these things. And Laura and the family were really worried. However, over the years, Chris, all sorts of players, the guys have had operations. There's a a thread running through what is a successful one. And when you wake up, you feel better. And so he woke up and he said, I feel better. I've not got that burning pain. And within a couple of weeks, he was playing again. And this was towards the back end of the season. So when he then plays at Old Trafford, 2016, that Wigan had more players from our salary cap sat in the stand than actually playing on the field that day. So Sam Tompkins was sat in the stand, Lee Mossop was sat in the stand, Tony Clubb was sat in the stand, Michael McLaurin was sat in the stand, Joel Thompson was sat in the stand, and we were playing the Warrington Wolves big timers. We supposedly we didn't stand a chance. Anyway, so when Liam Farrell breaks down the left channel and puts Oliver Gildart in for a try, that was a special moment for Liam, of course, for our team, but also for the medical staff, because we'd all worked so hard together, Liam and his family and Laura and the medical staff, to get him back on the field. And when he did that, broke through past Oliver, who was just coming into the team, you just think, wonderful. And so we won that game at one of Sean Wayne's greatest triumphs. And there's a wonderful picture I've got somewhere, of me holding this Super League trophy, everybody singing in the dressing room and blah, blah, blah. And your man, John Paul Nuasala, who's a bit of a joker, pouring beer on my head. I mean, extraordinary.
I think you've touched on it there, Chris, a little bit. And actually, you've spoke about a lot of people. There's two people. So myself and Dave Mullen, we got plenty of conversations together, the three of us, about everything that's going on in Wigan. Two people, well, there's three people probably stand out at the moment. Actually, Chris Radlinski's chief exec of the organisation, really leading from the front. Sean Wayne, as you've mentioned, actually Wigan through and through.
Our leadership and management director, and he's been at the root of all of this.
And I think that's what people all want to know, really, is about Mike Danson, the new owner.
Yeah, sure.
You know, coming in from Ian Lenigan, which is a great era. We all knew Ian, fantastic guy, put Wigan on the map. But Mike's now come in. I've got to say, I was with Sean Wayne a few weeks ago. We was at Hines. I was speaking at an event, and so was Sean. And you'll have probably heard him many times. He's a great speaker because he talks Wigan. And he talks what people know about. He knew loads of people in the audience from Hines, and he always talks about the bacon stamp. People listen to this, and what he's talking about is that when he was growing up, they didn't have a lot of money. They didn't have a lot going on. He was a bit of a wayward child. Even going into his teens, rugby brought him through that and made him the person he is. But the bacon stamp bit is that they had no money in their house, so they had a sandwich, and his dad used to put a piece of bacon in between two slices of bread, but then take the piece of bacon off, and all they had left to eat was a bacon stamp on the sandwich. This is Sean's story, which is when you tell people can actually in Wigan associate it with it and do that, but such nice people. And both myself and Dave Mullen go to the rugby, but also go to the football. Football's in our DNA as well. Sure. I think the difference being is Wigan rugby is a real local sport, where football's national and international, but you've got that. When Roberto was here at Wigan, we did loads of stuff with Roberto, probably the nicest guy you could ever meet, ever. And he wanted to get all them players in Wigan when we was in the Premier League, but it just doesn't work because they're a different breed of Premier League players. But Wigan is Wigan, and you see people daily, and you've dealt with them. I met Rads going back, and he probably won't remember this, I might be going back 15 years, and he was coming to speaking at an event at the Sports Awards. He was speaking, and I was going on after him, and he was a nervous wreck because it's the first time I think he'd ever done that kind of speaking. And he had his speech there, and he was chatting to me and going, "What do you do?" And I go, "I just ad lib kind of and do it." "How do you do that?" I said, "Well, when you've been on, I'm going to just follow you, mate, and do whatever." He got up there, he blew it away because he spoke about rugby and his life and everything. And I think, if anything, that was a build-up. And now he's probably one of the most acclaimed speakers going.
He is.
I think he's learned from you kind of guys going forward.
And so Chris, he's rooted in Wigan, and he's rooted in the Wigan Warriors. And he had the opportunity to leave Wigan and go and earn probably more money elsewhere in rugby union. His loyalty to Wigan and that thread that runs through, and the way in which he has led the club as our chief executive. So first of all, the rugby director, but then as the chief executive, and really grasped that, taking the club forward, because he understands that deep connection between our club and our wonderful fans, and the passion that you've mentioned, Chris, and the real joy that our fans get from the success of the club. He understands all of that really, really deeply. And his gift is that he's translated that into his leadership of the club. And he is an absolutely outstanding leader. And we are so fortunate to have him as our chief executive, and the impact he has, not just in Wigan and Wigan rugby, but throughout the game, where he's enormously respected. It's absolutely huge. Sean's a passionate man. I've known Sean since the late 80s. I said I worked in jaw and facial surgery. First met Sean then. He was playing for Wigan. He broke his jaw very, very badly. The backstory of that, there was a thing called the Locker Cup. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Yeah, I remember.
Locker Cup between Wigan and Warrington in pre-season. I said to Sean, well, how did you break your jaw? The answer was that the previous season in the Locker Cup was a guy called Billy McGinty, played for Warrington, then went to play for Wigan. Apparently, Sean had hit Billy McGinty the previous year. Billy McGinty waited a year until the next Locker Cup game, when he unfortunately saw retribution from Sean to Sean, and Sean a horrible broken jaw. So since then we've always been friends. Leadership skills, being able to connect with the players, being able to lift the team to really high levels, to inspire people. And that's why he's so successful with the England Rugby League team, because he's able to do that. But again, just like Chris, Sean, rooted in Wigan, very close to Chris's family, very close to Sean's family. And I think the board, Mike, are very lucky to have folk of that calibre. And our town is lucky to have them.
Can I just well. 2 points that we'll probably finish on, because it's time. One is Mike Danson, the new owner. I've met Mike, probably not as much as you. My impression is he's really like in the background. He's not an I am person. He's kind of come in there. He's a Wigan person, but actually he's invested in both the clubs, which is massive for the town to bring them together. Really nice guy when I've sat down with him, really unassuming. So that's the first bit. The second bit is the work that we're doing together on health and building all the council together and the sports clubs. With disadvantage area of getting people into our centres to get treatment and what have you. We've spoke about that. And what we spoke about was the database that Wigan Warriors have got and Wigan Athletic and the council combined. We can touch so many people together.
Absolutely.
And I know Dave Molyneux's had this conversation with Mike and yourself about us all working together for the benefit of the people. And health, without health, you've got nothing. It doesn't matter what we talk about. Health is the most important.
So if we start with Mike, Chris, because that's a good segue into the health and well-being of the people in Wigan. So Mike, born in Wigan, his family's from Wigan, deeply rooted in this town, really proud of the town. And yet it's very important to him that the health and well-being of those in our town, and how sport can be a vehicle to drive that and improve that. And so Mike, he obviously sits on our board, but I chair the board. Our objectives to the board, number one, Chris, is to build on that deep connection between the club and the community. And that's the same for the football club as well. To build on that deep connection and to really improve our connection with the fans, and to make that front and centre of everything. And then that to be a vehicle to improve the health and well-being of those we serve and the communities that we live in. So if you said to me, what's the biggest pleasure I've got from this season? We've won 4 trophies. We've absolutely stellar days. Team has played with style, grace, panache and skill. But the thing that's given me most pleasure, Chris, is seeing the fans, the joy that the fans get on those special occasions. The World Club Challenge night, seeing the team through to the Challenge Cup final, and again, the joy, the homecoming, how humbling was that? The league leaders shield, how we've been successful consistently throughout the season, how the fans got the team over the line in that game. Yeah. You'll have to remind, I think Derek Beaumont is on this podcast.
Yeah, he's coming. Yeah, Derek's another one. Yeah, he's coming.
You'll have to remind Derek when we've had little bits of tricky times against Leigh, how our fans have got behind us. And if Neil Hutchell, the owner of Hull KR, was here, he would reflect back to that night when we were struggling a bit against Hull, at Hull KR at home. And the fans got behind the team. Patrick Mago, we got over the line.
Yeah.
And then at Old Trafford, the joy in the fans, and just seeing their faces and how much it meant to them. So that connection with Mike and the town and what it means, or him and our board is absolutely certain that using the vehicle of sport to improve health and well-being, and the opportunity that we have to do that, to really grasp some of the inequalities, Chris, in our town, which are still here now, and to work and using the power of sport to shift the dial and help and support how we can together, and importantly with the council and with the NHS in Wigan, to shift the dial and improve those inequalities. Because how can it be that people in our town are dying before their time because of heart disease, as an example? How can that be? How can it be that in our proud town people are suffering so much of their mental health? What can we do, not just the club, collectively? That's the important bit. What can we do to really make a difference there? And that is the thing that's most important.
So just probably to finish off, I think you mentioned Derek at Leigh, and he'd done an amazing job over at Leigh. And I think the partnership that Wigan have got with Leigh, clubs to come to when they play together, that's a different story. But in the mix, it's working together. And I think somebody asked me the other day for an example of how you work together. And the example was when we had the riots in Southport.
Absolutely.
And all the things that were going on across the country.
Absolutely.
And that was overspilling into the town. Both Wigan Warriors and Leigh made statements to the community of saying, correct, we do not accept any racist behaviour, any behaviour like this. And that actually was a better message coming from you guys than coming from us or the police. And that's the power of sport. Yeah.
Great. I think a great story, and it's a wonderful example, Chris, of that and how we can make a difference. And look, there is a deep connection between the Wigan club and the Leigh club in our proud borough. So, long may that continue.
Thank you. We've got Amy and Kira from Wigan and Leigh College, and Wigan and Leigh College have been instrumental in doing this podcast, and we've got Chris Brookes here. So I think, ladies, you're going to ask Chris a couple of questions. So the floor's yours.
Yeah. So Wigan Warriors obviously has a strong connection to the community. How do you make sure that the club keeps engaged and gives back to the town?
That's the most important thing for us, Kira. So I'd like to think we have a deep connection with the fans. You're asking how we do that. So being open, being available, talking to the fans. So an example around that being we have a fan zone, which is in our training ground. And prior to every home game, the fans go to the training ground where there's the chance to meet me, to meet Chris, the CEO, perhaps some of the players who are not playing, to socialise together, and that's the chance to really talk about that connection that you've described. We make sure that we have plenty of open evenings whereby anybody from the town, is invited to come and take part in open training sessions, and there's been some really successful ones. So when we played in the World Club Challenge, on the Wednesday evening of that week, over 500 young ladies came to our training ground at Robin Park Arena to take part in an open training session. And that shows the strength and the interest in women's rugby league, which is now coming to the fore. And I think communication is the key, and the fans and the town seeing how we work in a close way with Wigan Council, with the NHS, and with that health and well-being message, and us using the power of sport just to shift the dial on the health and well-being of those we serve in the town.
And what's your journey been like becoming chairman for the Wigan Warriors?
Well, it's been a tough one, I have to say, because as I was saying to Chris in the podcast, for many years I was the team doctor. So I think for 18 seasons I was the team doctor. And so my association really was with the team and the dressing room, and much less with the boardroom. I'd like to think I was always connected with the fans who were supportive, and they encouraged me. Yet these wider roles were something that I've had to get used to. So apart from our own boardroom, I'd never been in the boardrooms of any of the other teams when we played away. And so I've had to get used to that. I suppose I've been around the game a long time, so people know who I am, and that's made things a bit easier. But it's been a massive change for me from working with the team to working in a wider capacity and doing some of the stuff I've said to Kira. So one of the things I had to do is give speeches and welcomes and all that stuff. And I was saying to my wife that I've done 30 speeches in this last season, and when you're trying to think of something new to say every time, that can be a bit tough, because people who are there for every one of these say, well, you said that before. So that's something I've had to think about. So there was one funny night when we had a past players event in the training ground, and then one or two of those past players were invited to our chairman's lounge before the game. And one of them said, I can't believe he said some of the things to the past players in the lounge at the training ground, and he said the same things in the chairman's lounge. I'm thinking, oh my goodness. So he dobbed me in it straight away.
Can I just come in there and kind of said that people have asked me this question about Chris, kind of actually transformation. And the biggest transformation I saw was from him wearing a kit to wearing a shirt and tie. Because that was the difference.
Oh, crikey, yeah. You're right, to be honest, because I would never have dreamt of wearing a shirt and tie to the game, but it's I have to dress properly now. And wear the right things as well. Wear the right club tie. Wear my badge.
Yeah.
To make sure that I'm representing the club in the right way. Although I'd like to wear Converse trainers, I have to wear the club shoes as well.
Oh. So what's next for Wigan Warriors? Are there any exciting plans or partnerships, initiatives that you'd like to maybe share?
So we'd like to think the success we have in the field will continue. We're committed to that. Big thing about that is, so our first team is really successful. Our academy is. We'd like our women's team to be absolutely at the pinnacle. So the women's team's on a journey. Kira, you might not know as much about it, but this season under Dennis Betts' leadership as a new head coach has been a massive change and improvement to the women's team. Women's team is starting to play at our stadium. We've got plans to develop our old training ground at Orrell to be a centre of women's sport and women's health and well-being. That's really important. Same with our wheelchair teams, to make sure that we can continue that pathway and that way that people can develop as sports players through our academy setups, both for the women's and our men's team and our wheelchair team. So how we can really develop our players and those who take part as people, the opportunities that gives. And then finally, to really build on the work we've done, I referenced just a moment ago about improving the health and well-being of those in Wigan.
And what are some of the challenges you've faced in your position?
So one of them is how rugby league is the wider part of the sport, and trying to get a united voice about things. So as somebody who's rooted in medicine, for instance, all of the work that we've done around brain health and trying to take that forward in a way that protects people's health, yet doesn't have a material, negative impact on the game as a spectacle. That's been a little bit of a challenge, and getting everybody to speak with a unified voice for the good of the game. And the Wigan Club are seen as leaders in the game, and quite rightly so, yet it can't be that we are adopting a position where our role is the most important. It's the game that's the most important, even though we're the most famous rugby league club probably in the world. The more important than that is the game of rugby league. And so getting that across to everybody that actually what we do is for the benefit of the game as a whole, that's been a little bit of a challenge. I'll just give you one last example of it. So we're going to play in Las Vegas. That's great. We're going to play against the Warrington Wolves. Kira's family are about, all your family are going. Those who can't afford to go, they'll be able to watch it on a big screen at Rombo. It's a great thing. However, it's Wigan and Warrington. So if you're a team that's not going, you might think, well, why are they going? And we're going because we just got the chance to showcase our sport. So we really hope that going forward in the future, Leeds or KR, St Helens, just to name a few, they'll be part of this going forward as well, because we'll have showcased our sport in a good light so that those who are running those sorts of events will want Super League as a whole to be part of it.
A massive thanks to Amy and Kira. Excellent questions. Not really based around rugby league, but actually real stuff. So I really appreciate that. It's been fantastic doing this podcast. Really grateful to Chris for coming in, sparing his time to do this. Really influential person in rugby league, but actually cares about the community. So I feel really privileged that Chris has been here. So thank you, mate.
Thank you very much, Chris. Always good.
Been really good.
Yeah,
thank
brilliant.
You.
Ladies, thank you too for great questions.